Welcome to the Heart and Soul Zoom podcast, where a space where words, people, and stories matter. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we are talking about May as Mental Health Awareness Month. And we are in the Heart and Soul Conversation Room to do that. We gather here. We will be joined by two experts who have generously agreed to share their experience and perspectives on mental health. As a little bit of background, Mental Health America founded this month in 1949 and has led the effort every May since to promote mental wellness nationwide. This year's theme for the month is More Good Days Together. It encourages all of us to reflect on what a good day looks like for ourselves and for our communities. Ultimately, Mental Health America's intent is to remind us all that no matter how we might feel in the moment, good days are possible, help is available, and we are not alone. Mental Health America has put together a 2026 Mental Health Month action guide on their website that offers online activities, articles, printable tools, and practical resources. And if you look in the chat, I've put a link to that in there. So, always some key trivia, key mental health facts. These are stunning to me when I found these as I did research for tonight. 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health condition each year, not in their life, but every year. So among the group of us here tonight, at least one of us will have a mental health condition this year, will endure it. Over 50% of people with mental health conditions still don't receive treatments, often due to cost, stigma, or access barriers for people who don't have transportation. They can't get to their appointments, even if they could get a mental health consultation. Anxiety and depression remain the most common conditions, and rates have increased since the pandemic, especially among young adults. And we all know the studies that show how the pandemic has done such a number on our youth after going through what they went through in school, out of school, and all the stress that went with that. Loneliness is now considered a major public health concern, and it's linked to both mental and physical health risks. Burnout, officially recognized by the World Health Organization, is a workplace phenomenon that affects mental health. Now, here's the real kicker. I was shocked at this. Younger generations, Gen Z and millennials, are more likely to seek therapy, talk openly about mental health, and prioritize emotional well-being over the hustle culture. In other words, running fast and hard to get work done, they're going to prioritize their emotional well-being over that. Kind of smart, right? They're showing us older people that this is the way to do it. There's also growing awareness that mental health equals overall health. Mental health and physical health come together for your overall health. They should not be separate because they both together are what make us healthy. And mental health doesn't always look a certain way. Remember, many people that are struggling are high function. Now, this was something that I've had a lot of conversation with these two guests tonight. Small daily habits, sleep, connection, movement, and purpose have huge cumulative impact on your mental health. And then what we're doing right here tonight, connection, is one of the strongest protective factors for your mental health. Conversation truly matters. So usually at this point, I give you some questions to ponder while we're having our podcast so you can join in the conversation. And as I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning in agita of, did I get it right? Did I give my guests enough information? Was the Zoom call going to work? Did I know enough? Was I prepared? I took a deep breath and went, stop. This is the whole point of what we're doing tonight. And I thought to myself, why don't, instead of 3 questions, tell people 3 things you do to help your mental health, and then ask them to do the same. So my 3 things that I do are, when I thought about it, the first thing was music. If I'm in a dark, painful place or in a funk, the right song by Lake Street Dive, Kenny Chesney, Billy Joel, Winona Judge, doesn't matter. Music can turn my soul from sadness to joy. Then there's the tried and true, taking a walk in the 200-acre park across from my home, often followed by a reward of ice cream. Kind of counterproductive, I know, but hey. I'm good. And finally, the never fail is what I posted about today on my social media. If you didn't see it, it's with time with my grandpup Buster and my daughter and grandkids attached to him. And to be truthful, at 5 o'clock this morning, when I went through that list, just thinking about those things brightened my mindset. So what I'd like to ask everyone tonight is to think of 3 things that help lighten your thoughts when life gets you down. And as we chat, share those things so we can each benefit from them. So with that, I want to welcome tonight's Heart and Soul guest, beginning with Cherie Messore. She is the Executive Manager of Community Relations for Spectrum Health and Human Services. Spectrum Health is a nonprofit founded in 1973, and they are committed to compassionate and high-quality care. Spectrum Health offers more behavioral health care services than any other provider in Erie or Wyoming counties. That's a stunning piece of information right there, a big statistic. Their mission is to respectfully partner with adults, children, and families as they recover from behavioral, emotional, mental health, and/or substance abuse-related disorders by offering individualized and meaningful opportunities of hope, empowerment, and support to achieve self-defined improvements in their quality of life. So I would like to introduce to you Cherie. Welcome, Cherie. We're so happy you're here with Heart and Soul.
Good evening, Christina. Thank you so much for including me. It's an important show tonight.
It is an important
Mental Health Awareness Month Eve.
Right, exactly. And full disclosure, Cherie and I are diva sisters. If you're not familiar with the diva legend in Western New York, Mary Kate O'Connell has O'Connell and Company Theater. She started the longest running theater production called Diva by Diva. It's about women entertaining, but women who are not professional entertainers. So people like Cherie and I go and we get to sing and do readings and entertain on stage, and it's great fun. And we've been doing it together for, well, 25 years.
20-ish
So
years. Sure.
when I made the emergency call to Cherie and said, will you help me? And she said, sure, because that's what Diva Sisters do.
That's what we do.
That's what we
And
do.
you know, Christina, when we talk about the 3 things that we do for each other, the connection with that diva sisterhood
True.
has got to be at the top of both of our lists. You know, maybe it's not the daily thing that we do, but knowing that we've got that circle of 300-ish divas that we can turn to for anything. Remember, at the start of every diva show, and friends, you don't see this when you're in the audience, but we experience it backstage. We circle up, we hold hands, we come together. Mary Kate always says, look to the woman next to you on either side. They have your back.
Yeah.
Because we've turned to each other in times of necessity, in times of fun. How many times have we invited each other to parties? But how many other times have we picked up the phone and called someone because maybe we knew they were grieving, or we needed to talk, or we needed a favor, or we needed direction? That's what that sisterhood does. And, you know, we find that in other walks of life, but I think in the theater world too, we always look for those connections.
Well, yep, well done. Yay, bravo, brava. So let's move on to Spectrum Health. Tell us some of the real things that Spectrum Health does in our community to help.
We provide behavioral health services, and that can be anything from counseling service to guidance for substance abuse recovery. We do a lot of community awareness and a lot of community events. We have clinics in the city of Buffalo, in West Seneca, and you mentioned the rural communities. We have clinics in Springville and also in Wyoming County. In Wyoming County, because there is often a physical barrier for people getting into treatment, we have a van that goes out 3 days a week. So we bring the services to the people in Allegheny and Perry, New York. So we're trying to not let distance be a barrier or accessibility be a barrier. And you'll find really even in the city, our clinic locations, we strive to put them on bus routes or in the most populated areas so they're easy and accessible to people.
Yeah, I mean, and I think most of us are blessed that we can get to places when we need to get them. We can get the care we need, but there is such a large percentage of our population in Western New York and in the counties surrounding Western New York that they just don't have access. They can't afford a car. There isn't public transportation. And if they don't have a friend or a neighbor or a family member, even if they get a medical appointment, they can't get there, whether it's for their mental health or their physical health. So to hear that you try to provide those things in the rural areas is outstanding, because that's the only way things are going to get better, is if people have access. And it's not just about the health insurance, it's about actually getting there.
The physical actual access. Our Wyoming County Clinic is very, very busy because in a rural community, there's not always a lot of opportunity, and that physical barrier is significant. So we're so fortunate that we have support from Wyoming County Office of Mental Health and other agencies that have come together and help us do this and put the service out there. And it's not limited to Wyoming County too. Sometimes people just don't know how and where to turn. We have a relationship in the town of West Seneca, where once a month our MAT team, which is our medication assisted treatment program team, has a presence in the community center, which is the same building where the Chamber of Commerce office is, and the town Parks and Rec office, and the library. And I got a call a couple of weeks ago from Joe Kirchmeyer from the Chamber of Commerce, and said, I have a woman in my office and she needs some services, she needs some support. So let me call. So I called our South Towns Counseling Center, which was about a half mile away. And I said, we have someone who needs help right now. And they said, okay, send her over. So we were able to send this person right into a counseling center. She didn't need or expect that she needed counseling support, but she needed some other guidance, some other resources. So our team went there, was able to give her the resources that she needed to get the help she needed right away.
So let me just stop you there for a minute, Cherie. When, she didn't need the counseling resources, but she needed others. How do you provide other resources within the realm of what you do?
Our teams are so well versed in the services that are available in our communities, whether it's housing or counseling that is perhaps, not within our scope, or other things related to food or nutrition, or other social services types of support, that they're able to just connect with you and help you get what you need. Our team, because they were right there, they were, within a mile away, and we have this beautiful relationship with the town, they were able to connect this woman and get her the help that she needed. So that's just being part of that larger global community here in Western New York, where we're able to do that for one another.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit. We have talked off and on in your career there at Spectrum Health, and you have different initiatives. It's not just the services you provide within the scope of the buildings where you have a presence, but you do things out in the community as well. And one of the things I was really intrigued by was something that that started because of COVID, and now is carried through in our community through a string of events that have been really and terribly mentally stressful for our community. Tell us a little bit about that whole project.
The project that you're talking about, Christina, is our Buffalo Hope team. And if you were tuned into Daytime Buffalo today, Kate Hill from Buffalo Hope was there, and you can see the show again tomorrow morning on CW 23 at 10 o'clock, talking about what Buffalo Hope does. Buffalo Hope started actually as New York Project Hope, was a statewide initiative that launched in the aftermath, or actually during COVID, kind of at the very end of COVID, because there were so many people who needed guidance to help manage the stress and manage the uncertainty of what was happening during COVID. People who never thought that they needed mental health services or behavioral health services before were finding that they were anxious, they were depressed, they needed support to help a loved one who was even more anxious or depressed, particularly kids. I mean, you mentioned it in your intro about, in school, out of school, synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, how to, log on to your Chromebook to do your schoolwork, all these things that we never thought we'd have to encounter before. So there was such a need for that across the state that the Office of Mental Health launched this New York Project Hope initiative and put these teams of paraprofessionals in communities just to help respond to the emotional crisis. So was it counseling? Yes, it was helping people connect to counseling, but sometimes it was just that person to talk to, whether it was at the other end of the phone line because there was a warm line that was just for that, or in some of these in-person meetings. So we were one of the sites selected in New York State, and it was all picked by incidences of COVID and what the recovery rate was. So we had two teams in Buffalo, one that was centered here at Spectrum Health and one that was with our colleagues over at the Buffalo Urban League. And we had this group of paraprofessionals that was going into the community and talking to people and just being that reassurance that people needed, that connection to emotional support. At the time when the state was starting to pull back from those, as they saw the crisis starting to lift, what happened? The tragedy at Tops on May 14th a few years ago. So Buffalo was allowed to continue with those services because clearly this was a community that needed more emotional support.
Mhm.
Coming out of that, what happens that next December? That awful winter storm that impacted our whole community, but particularly the city of Buffalo and particularly East Buffalo. So at that point, the state looked at us again, saw that there was more need for emotional support, more need for healing and connection. And so they allowed Buffalo to continue. It has now become a permanent program within the Office of Mental Health. We have 6 wonderful paraprofessionals who are in the community every day of the week, whether they're in schools talking to our littlest friends, or they're in senior centers, or they're participating in community events or public events. They're everywhere. And they are providing things like activities that can help with grounding. You mentioned at the top of the show, what are the 3 things that you do for yourself? For you, it's music, and it's connecting with the little ones in your family, and that walk at that beautiful park across the street. Other folks have other ways of finding grounding activities. People like to do crafts that, kind of helps connect people. So our Buffalo Hope team is out in the community every day talking to people about these things that they can do and ways that they can achieve that emotional wholeness that outside circumstances sometimes take from us.
Right. Cherie, before we get too further down this road, I want to tell people that if you look in the chat, there is contact information for Spectrum Health and Human Services, a website and a phone number. So know that that information is there for you. And also, if anybody has a question for Cherie, please feel free to, unmute and ask away, because the connection is what we're looking to do tonight, and give people the opportunity to have their questions answered. And you don't have to live in Western New York to ask a question of either of our guests tonight. They're happy to give you any information that they can. So would anybody like to ask Cherie a question at this time? And if so, please just unmute and ask away.
And let's qualify that too by saying, I'm not a counselor.
Right.
And my career, as Christina knows, has always been in public relations and fundraising. So I think I have the best gig in the world, because I get to be that person in the community with our Buffalo Hope team and our medication assisted treatment program team and our clinic team, where we build those community connections and we find ways for people to connect with one another and talk to one another and learn more about what our agency can do to help and help you. So I'm so happy that I get to be in an environment that is truly helping people.
Right.
And I'm just the conduit to making all the cool things happen. And Christina, you mentioned music before as being your go-to for mood elevation, which is totally mine too. One of the things we started a few months ago, about 6 months ago now, we have our own channel on Spotify.
Come on.
And we do. We have a Spotify station. It's connected to our podcast. I also have a podcast, and Christina, you're going to be a guest on it with us one day too, called Spectrum Health Journey. And it is that casual conversation that helps normalize behavioral health and helps normalize these conversations, just as a way to get people talking about it and seeing what people really need. And sometimes we really just need that laid back conversation. I joke that our podcast is so laid back. If it were any more laid back, it could fall over. But we have 2 great hosts, Mulaney White, who is a clinical director. She is our mental health counselor, and Bob Stahura, who is the vice president of Buffalo Advertising Management. He's the guy pushing the buttons.
Where are your Spectrum Health locations in Western New York?
We have a location in City Mission, and we have another location on the east side of Buffalo over on Maple Street. That's our Rapid Access Center. We are in temporary location at 1298 Main Street, because that storm that I mentioned back in 2022, it washed out our biggest counseling center in the city of Buffalo at 1280 Main Street. So we're currently rebuilding that. And while we're rebuilding it, we're half a block away in the St. Vincent de Paul building. We have clinics in West Seneca and in South Buffalo and Springville and Warsaw.
Cherie, I know we've got to let you go. I just want to ask you one last question. And again,
Sure.
you're not a counselor. We made that clear, but you bring the message of Spectrum Health, and that was really important for us to have tonight. Thank you for that. But for someone listening, either tonight or we record this and it'll go on my YouTube channel, and if they're hesitant, like I understand you have feelings and you don't feel well and you just don't know what's going on, but you'd like to get help and you don't know how, or you don't want to say anything to anybody. You just want them to think you're fine. So if someone feels like they'd like to ask for help, but they're hesitant, what's the first step that someone can take to reach out for support?
Always call. Just call. We've got great people who are ready to talk to you, who can connect you with the services that you need. Just make that phone call to us and to Spectrum Health for the agency of your choice. Maybe you drive past a place and you see the sign out in front. You wonder what happens at that location, that facility. Make that phone call. You talked about the connection between physical health and mental health, which is so important. Talk to your physical health doctor as well. It could be something physical. It could be that connection of the two things, but don't be shy about reaching out, whether you're calling a place like Spectrum Health, whether you're calling, the Buffalo Hope Warm Line, you can get that right off our website too, or talking to your medical doctor. The more that we normalize reaching out for help, the easier it will be to do so. And you mentioned this younger generation, we can call them that. They're much more comfortable
Yes, they
and
are.
less vulnerable when they're asking for help like that. Used to be, when we were their age, maybe we weren't made to feel that comfortable, but now it's so much more normalized
Right.
because there's more conversation around it. You quoted Simone Biles on your website. There are plenty of celebrities, musicians, high profile people who make their mental health struggles very, very public. They talk about it in healthy ways because they're looking for the help that they know they need. So
Right. And
beginning with that conversation, talk to a trusted friend. A trusted friend may be the one sitting right next to you as you're making that first phone call. Maybe they're driving to the appointment with you. Christina, when we were chatting last night, we talked about peer support. We have a very active group of wonderful peers who work within our agency, and they are part of every treatment team. Often people tell us that they feel that connection with peers, often more so than they feel connected to their counselor, because they know the peers have walked in their shoes,
right.
whether it's with a
Exactly.
mental health diagnosis or a substance abuse situation.
Great.
The
Cherie, you've been
peers are
great.
going to be.
Just a great resource. Spectrum serves a great purpose in our community. Thank you for all you do. Please thank your counselors and your intake people, everybody in the organization, because this is what we need. We need to know that there are people there who want to help and who are willing to help. And there's no embarrassment in it. Call and ask for help. Your body and your mind both need to have health care. And so that's what Health Spectrum Health does. So thank you. And I know you've got to run. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. And again, please check out the website and the phone number for Spectrum and call them if you need help.
I'm going to hand you the segue that you've always wanted, Christina, because my other go-to besides listening to great music when I need that boost or I just need to reconnect is to pick up a good book and read. And, there's plenty of good books around there, Miss Christina, that are just begging to be read. I bet you can list out a few of them. Certainly,
Thank you.
I'm about this much into my copy of The Secret Sand Circle, and that puts a smile on my face when I pick up a book and I'm going to read something that is so carefully researched and so carefully written and so thoughtfully put together. I'm happy to lose myself in those moments. So that's another way that using literature is a great way to connect and just make you feel better about you.
Thank you. I don't have a counseling degree and I don't do representation for Spectrum Health kind of places, but what I can do is tell the stories that I hopefully will help people. So that's what we did. Cherie, thanks. We'll
Hey, my
talk.
friend,
We'll go
we
for
will,
wine.
we
Take
shall.
care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Now that Cherie is gone, I would like to introduce the questions for the night because we had some people come in later. What we're trying to do is I shared 3 things that help me when I get into a bad mood or sadness or any of those things. And they were basically music, walking, especially in the park across the street, and my grandpup Buster, and my daughter and grandkids attached to him. And so I'm asking people, we'll take a little break now before we go to our next guest, and ask if anybody would like to share about 2 or 3 things that they use that help them. And it's not that it's you're not doing anything that's changing the world, but it's when you wake up in the morning and just have that cloud hanging over you, or you get a phone call in the afternoon and it stresses you out. And what do you do for yourself that helps you get past it in your life? What have you figured out? So if anybody would like to share that, I'd be happy to hear it. And it would be fun for other people to hear. Not fun, helpful. It would be helpful. So anybody care to share?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. So do you have 3 things?
I do. I do. In fact, tied to a story, because I'm a storyteller too, of sorts. I was driving along yesterday and I was thinking, oh gosh, I lost a very close girlfriend of mine, one of those soulmate types of women that you know. And I had the radio on, of course, and a Van Morrison song came on. Now, she was just a Van Morrison aficionado. And I thought, okay, Annie, you're telling me it's okay. I'm doing really well, and I see you, and don't be sad. And I thought, so that was one. And then the other thing I do, which is very everybody's happy that I feel this, I love to bake.
Ooh.
So I bake, and then I eat usually one piece of whatever I make. And then I don't eat anymore. So it's relatively calorie free to me to do that. It's just Steve does all the shopping, and he's wondering where all this stuff is, all the stuff that's coming in. And he says, "Did you bake again today?" I said, "Yeah, I made some cookies, or I made some lemon pie, or I did this." He says, "Well, where is it?" I tell him his piece is in the refrigerator. So that's, and my cat. I love my cat. He's just stuck to my side. So it's the dog or the cat, that kind of thing. It's just
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Animals, pets are wonderful. And I do also have to give Sylvia credit, because for 3 of my books now, she has made book covers for me to take them to readings, and because I do readings when I do presentations. And so, Sylvia, you're a very thoughtful person that way. And those things raise my spirits every time I see those book covers, or every time I do a presentation. I feel you with me and supporting me in my work. And so again, it's the little things. It's the way people surround you and help you. And, you're so thoughtful that way. So thank you for those things.
Well, I'm honored that you've liked them, and it's just I just do like to make something for somebody, and for you to say that you feel me with you, that's just warms my heart. So I like that. I like that a lot.
So Hannah Freed, where are you? They said you wanted to share 3 things. I'm hoping, maybe. What do you do?
To calm down, I like to go outside and just enjoy the noises outside. I think I'm a little different than most of you because I'm in college. I'm always listening to music. Like when I walk to class, I always have my earbuds in. And because like I have my phone with me, like music is always readily available. So I think just to calm down sometimes, I'll take out my earbuds and I'll listen to like the people around me, and I'll listen to like if there's birds now that it's spring. And my school is right next to a lake, so I like to go down and listen to the lake. So just kind of like pausing and then just, not trying to like fill my brain with stuff, and just taking a moment to kind of enjoy quiet.
Nice. Good. Are you calm now? Are we making you feel peaceful in this podcast, I hope?
Yes, this is a
All
nice
right,
discussion.
So good to see you, Hannah. All right. Anybody else? And maybe one more before we go on to our next guest? Hello? No? Okay. And please feel free to chime in. This is not the only time, but I just wanted to make sure we made time. So we are going to go on to our second guest for the evening, and her name is Dr. Kathy Calabrese. And I don't have your intro, Kath, so all I'm going to say is Kathy has been a psychologist for 40 years. She is also a licensed family and marriage therapist. Yes? And
Yes.
she is trained in neurofeedback techniques, and she is also in the Sarno-Sachs program. Yes?
Right.
Okay,
Mind your
good.
body.
Mind your
body.
body. And she's a friend. We met because someone brought her to me to write a white paper for her. And we connected from the immediate time I sat down in her dining room, and we've just been best friends ever since. And she has been a support in my personal life and as an author and a writer, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And she is a remarkable, remarkable individual with a way of talking to you and listening to you and helping you see perspectives that's just amazing. So I'm so grateful you're here tonight, Dr. Kathy.
Oh,
And
thank you, Christina.
40 years as a psychologist is remarkable. So I would just like to ask you briefly, what first called you to this work?
Actually, I began my career in special education. I've always wanted to work with, I thought I was going to be an English teacher, but then I thought, you know what, that might be kind of boring. So, which was ridiculous. But I thought special education was just emerging. And I thought, you know, that is really interesting. I had no experience with kids with special needs whatsoever. But I decided that that's what my major would be. And I graduated in special education and started working at West Seneca Developmental Center. And at that time, basically, I was married. I became pregnant. So I had a baby. Now I thought I was going to be an at-home mom and not have a career. But
And
my
40 years
career,
later, look
yeah,
how
40
God
years
laughed at
later, I'm
you.
talking about it. But
Well,
anyway, you know, I began working on special projects in special education. And one of them was to go into the homes of people, individuals who had children with some real severe issues, and to coach them in regard to how to help them change their behaviors, unwanted behaviors, or reinstate more independent skills and things that the children needed in order to live full and rich, more independent lives. So I did that, but I also started teaching at D'Youville. I supervised the students in the field.
so
And I
when did
did.
you get to the psychology part?
When did I get to that?
There you go.
I got to that when I decided to go for my doctorate. Okay. But I didn't think I was going to go into counseling. But my program was the Counseling and Educational Psychology department. I thought I was just going to be prepared for, you know, a long career in academia. So I took a course that introduced me to family systems therapy.
That
And
was it.
I was fascinated. I was hooked. And so that's what was happened in my career. I have been introduced to very new cutting edge opportunities, excuse me, to help people. And some of them have just hooked me. So then I would train in that and go forward. But
So Kathleen, looking back on these 40 years of all
Yeah.
these different things,
Yeah.
what has changed most in how we understand mental health since you began?
What has changed? Because typically therapy in those days was they came to a therapist, the therapist listened. Sometimes we worked on strategies, you know, to help things improve, et cetera, et cetera. Since that time, the world of technology has exploded. And I want to talk a little bit about something you've touched on just earlier today. You said it's the mind and the body. We now understand that the brain and the body are so connected. I mean, there's as many neurons in our gut, you know, in it as there are in our brain, which is billions. I mean, it's just so our body and brain are in constant communication. So when the body has a problem, the brain is going to respond to it. When we are emotionally in a dysregulated place, the body is going to respond to that. So we have to consider both. technology has enabled us to pay attention to both. I was introduced to neurofeedback in 2007, and it was a synchronistic thing. I read a book review. I said, I want to know about this. It was called The Healing Power of Neurofeedback by Steve Larson. I began training then and never stopped. And so I'm a clinical association with the neurofeedback world and certified as a neurofeedback clinician. I also do hypnotherapy. That has been fascinating because I'm also fascinated with the power of the unconscious mind. And so the hypnotherapy enables me and my client to establish a direct communication with the unconscious mind, and things come up, things emerge. It's an incredible experience for me and for my clients. So we're able to understand things more from the perspective of the family system's patterns, the patterns that have developed within a family system over generations. We're able to piece together some understanding of the current issues in the therapeutic process of when these things began to take form within the family system. And then it gets passed along generation to generation, unless there is intervention early. Typically, grief is what kicks off a family's inability to handle whatever it is that has come along. Unresolved grief is really contributes a great deal to the emerging symptoms
And
within
that
the
grief,
following.
that unresolved grief can come from anything. It's not necessarily that someone died.
That's correct. That's correct.
Wow.
The immigration process, okay, leaving your homeland, et cetera, et cetera. It's incredible how many, that phrase, death by a thousand cuts, just came to my mind. How many losses we experience in our lives, large and small.
Right. We don't
And
have
each
sometimes
one
realize.
of those losses requires us to understand it more fully in order not to adapt in an unhelpful way to the losses.
Right.
Anyway, I do a
Unhealthy.
lot of work with trauma now, but so there's been things along the way, but the technology, neurofeedback, has changed the way I practice.
In a thumbnail, can you
Yeah.
explain what neurofeedback is?
Yes, the brain has two operating systems. One is electrical and one is chemical. All right. Those two need to be working in cooperation with each other in order for the brain to function well. One of the things that health is, when we say mental health or physical health, it means that the body and the brain are in homeostasis or balance. From the cell level up, that is health. And when that is disrupted, for instance, I work with a lot of people with concussions. All right. When the brain is disrupted by a severe blow of some kind, it doesn't matter what kind, it gets stuck. It sometimes gets stuck in that place of dysregulation, and it can't get out because it's hurt. So the neurofeedback comes in, provides it with the gentle current that the brain recognizes and then is able to take in and use in its own miraculous way to gently and carefully and slowly move back into balance or homeostasis. What happens when the brain changes like that? Symptoms improve. The anxiety quiets, the depression lifts, the cognitive fogginess that comes along with so many things clears. I can't tell you how many people after one treatment will say, oh my gosh, I just feel so much clearer. Now, it's not an overnight miracle cure, that is for sure. It requires tremendous commitment on the part of the client, because in this process, we are a team. My clients and I are teammates. I am not the expert. They often say, Kath, you're the expert. You know, what should I do? I said, no. I will never be the expert of you. I will walk with you. I will partner with you. I will make all kinds of suggestions. And we are in this together, but you know what you need. It's funny because sometimes when I ask a client if they want to do more neurofeedback, and I call them stimulations. So we'll do 2 stims, let's say, and I'll say, would you like more? Well, I don't know. What do you think? I said, I'm not the boss of you. So I say, all right, try this on. Close your eyes. And they close their eyes. Ask your brain if it would benefit to have more neurofeedback and listen for the answer. Inevitably, they know exactly what to do. And they'll
You are
say, they'll
awesome.
open their
Kathy,
eyes and
yeah.
they'll say, okay, I think, no, I think we're done today. Or 2 more. It's uncanny, but it
It works.
absolutely works. What I am committed to doing with my people is to build their trust in themselves. People come in and they are suffering and they don't trust themselves because they have not been able to find a way to mitigate their suffering, and they feel awful about that. So I want to empower my people to trust themselves, to know what they need, and to be able to express what they want.
If anybody has questions for Kathy, this is a great time. And please don't hesitate. If you don't want to turn on your camera, you don't have to. But if you'll turn on your mic and just tell us your question, and I'm sure Kathy's happy to answer anything you have to ask within the realm.
Yeah, and it's a big realm.
It is a big realm. It is a big realm. Anybody have any questions at all? Just so you know, Kathy's contact information is in the chat as well, so you can reach out to her if you prefer to do it that way. Kathy, I'd just like to ask, what's one small step someone could take today towards better mental health? Even independently, without having to make a phone call, without having to tell somebody, because a lot of people don't want to talk about what's going on, but they would like to feel better and they don't know where to start. So what would be that first small step?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was begin to tell the truth about your suffering to somebody. You know, dear friends, trusted people. And if that is not available or you don't believe it's available, write it all down. Begin writing. We mentioned just a little bit earlier the book, Mind Your Body, the Sarno-Sachs process. The heart of that is journal speaking, in which you spend 20 minutes writing. This is a much more complicated process, but I hope people will check out the book. But anyway, writing for 20 minutes. Then you rip up the page. Most people don't journal because they don't want anyone to see it. So you write, and then you meditate for 10 minutes. So you are expressing your truth. You are saying whatever you need to say, no matter how awful you think it is. And then you go quietly within yourself and you spend time with yourself, comforting yourself, encouraging yourself. Now, so that is one thing. But to me, being able to speak the truth in some way is wonderful.
So Kath,
Also,
I put just to say, I put Nicole's book, Mind Your Body, the name of the book, and the author is Nicole Sachs. So that's in the notes.
Excellent.
The other thing I would say, from my perspective of the research I did and the book that I wrote, it's important to be able to talk, but sometimes you just can't. And
That's
so
right.
to be able to write, even if you don't, what you described is exactly the ultimate goal of 20 minutes and then meditate.
Yeah, right.
Realistically, none of us are going to look at that and say, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. We're going to say,
No.
I could never find the time. I can't do that. But you can start with just sitting down for 5 minutes and just writing, letting the agita, the concern, the grief, whatever it is, come out. And then, as Kathy said, rip it up, throw it out, burn it, whatever you want to do. And that's the whole point, because at least you've released it. And so it's not staying within you and holding that tension, that fear, that anger, whatever it is inside of you. So
that's right.
It's a place to
That's
start, right? The ultimate goal is what Kathy described, but you don't start there.
Right.
You just try whatever.
You start very small. whatever comes to mind, because like I said, when I have people ask their brain, just close your eyes and ask, what would be helpful? What can I do that would be helpful? And I guarantee you, if you give yourself time to listen, it will be take the dog out right now. I mean, you and I are crazy about our pups, and Finny is right next to me on the floor right now. And I can't even imagine what it would be like without him. So do something, movement is so important. And it's great for moving energy, because you see, when we're suffering, we're stuck in a very dysregulated place. That's why the term mental illness is going to go by the wayside, because it's not an illness. It is simply a reflection of a system, a brain, body, spirit system that is dysregulated. It is not in balance. It is not in homeostasis, and it needs support. And that support can come in so many different ways, Art. I've had clients who I haven't talked at all, but they've drawn, and the story emerged through those drawings. And it's very important to be very patient, a patient listener. When you enter the therapy room, that is your sacred space. And if it doesn't feel safe for any reason, you don't have to have a really good reason. If it doesn't feel right, leave. And don't see, because finding a therapist, and I'm not the right therapist for everybody, believe me. I mean, finding the right therapist.
So how do you do that, Kath? How do you find a therapist that
you interview them, call them on the telephone, have a consultation with them on the phone, look at their website, ask them questions, because it's very important that you feel comfortable. This is a huge act of courage. Coming to a stranger and talking about what needs to be talked about is an act of supreme courage. And I am so privileged. What has kept me going all these years? Every single day, I am absolutely awed at the gift that the people who come to see me are willing to give. They give themselves. It blows my mind. I've got chills right now. I mean, it's just, I feel so privileged, and that's what keeps me going.
So once again, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kath.
That's okay. That and my curiosity to learn more. You have to have somebody who's curious. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions before we finish up? I can't believe the hour is almost gone. Would anybody like to ask Dr. Kathy anything? Okay, well, you have her contact info in the chat. You also have Spectrum Health in the chat. There are a couple of things I do. Full disclosure, I would like to acknowledge Kathy. I have a new book out called The Secret Sand Circle. Cherie was kind enough to acknowledge it. It is about a psychologist. It's a work of fiction, but 3 years of research and work with the Commissioner of Social Services for Erie County, the Commissioner of Mental Health for Erie County, and Dr. Calabrese. She also, at the end of the day, when we got the book in a manuscript form, sat and listened to me read all 92,000 words of the book out loud to be sure that it was what it should be, and made sure that I was on the right path and that the stories that I told in this book were accurate. So I just wanted to thank Kathy publicly for that, at least in this podcast. And because at the end of the night, that's what we're talking about here. And that's what the book is about: trauma, healing, and the impact those experiences have, not just on patients, but on the professionals who walk alongside them. And as you just heard from Kathy, the professionals, if they're good, if they know what they're doing and they really care, it matters to them as much as it does to the patients. So
can I say one thing before we leave?
Sure.
Okay, about that book. The book is magnificent. And I say that, I don't say things like that unless I really, really mean it. And it was a privilege to listen so carefully to Christina read the book. And it's a wonderful, inspirational, touching, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I would highly encourage people to to read it.
We're almost done. And I just wanted to share one thing with everybody. There is a family, when I lived at Crown Hill, if you aren't familiar, I lived in a farmhouse for 20 years. And the family who owned it back in the 1950s was the Crow family. And they had 10 children, and those children have gone on to have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And today, one of the grandchildren posted something online that just seems so appropriate for tonight. So it's just a short reading I want to share with you. And it's called April. April's final Thursday is a quiet reminder that time doesn't wait, it teaches. The days you thought were ordinary were shaping you. The struggles you questioned were strengthening you. And the small wins you overlooked were building something bigger. As this month closes, don't carry regrets. Carry lessons, growth, and the courage to begin again. End April with gratitude and step into May with purpose, because every ending is simply life making space for a stronger version of you. So that is my wish for you on this last Thursday in April. Thank you, as always, for everyone who shared this night and this podcast. I hope that tonight's Heart and Soul conversation stays with you, inspires you, and brings you back again to this special place where people, words, and stories matter. Until then, take care. Talk soon.